The second lesson covers cooking and eating spaces in your mid-century home. The kitchen specifically needs its own lesson because it's one of the most complex, expensive, and personally specific parts of the house. I'll talk a little bit about kitchens over time and then the mid-century kitchen specifically. It has some quirks. Then I'll get right down to suggesting a few small, medium, or large changes you could choose to address your kitchen. Is the kitchen the heart of your home? I mean that question sincerely. For many people, even those who are not avid cooks, the kitchen represents a hub of activity for eating, socializing, and hanging out throughout the day. However, I do want you to consider the possibility that a kitchen just isn't that important to you. If that's the case, seriously downgrade the amount of time, energy, and money you plan to spend on it, especially if you have an original mid-century kitchen rather than a generic 90s update. You might simply make a few style tweaks to bring it from tired to trendy and move on to other areas. If your kitchen is the heart of your personal home, then stay tuned, we're about to get into it. Residential cooking spaces have changed and moved around our homes a lot over time. Originally, most cooking was done right in the main living area of modest homes. People cooked over the same hearth where they gathered for warmth and evening light. Greater affluence, and even financial comfort, have always been closely followed by separating that cooking space from the rest of the house. Technology has improved so much since the days of open fire heat. Now you can warm something in the microwave without adding a degree to your living space temperature. Now, before the mid-century home, the kitchen was still largely a freestanding affair. There was likely a range, a sink, and a refrigerator, but no counters or wall-hung cabinets. Instead, there would be a storage unit like a Hoosier cupboard, perhaps with bins for flour and sugar, and a little bit of work surface, and then a table with chairs that served as both prep and dining area. The idea of an efficient kitchen was coming along long before the mid-century ranch. Remember that book and movie, Cheaper by the Dozen? The mother in that story, Lillian Galbraith, was an industrial psychologist and engineer. So was her husband, by the way, but she continued her work and influence long after his death. She coined the term work triangle, that functional space between the fridge, sink, and stove. The work triangle kitchen design specifies that no leg of the triangle should be less than 4 feet, too cramped, or more than 9, too many steps, and that the sum of all three distances should be between 13 and 26 feet. No cabinet, counter, or table should get in the middle of a good work triangle. Now, in her time, this idea was revolutionary. It was intended to and did reduce the workload of the cook, usually mom. However, it isn't as applicable today as it was when Galbraith invented it. The way we cook has changed. We no longer start from an unplucked chicken or a basket of tomatoes. Meal prep takes less time and is more likely to be undertaken by more than one person than in the past. Also, what we eat has changed. Breakfast was once bacon, eggs, and hash browns. Now it's a bowl of cereal or a coffee and a bar grabbed on the way out the door. Now, those changes aren't universal. The way we cook is more individualized. Some families really do like to eat meals made from scratch, whereas others just want a place for the Keurig to stand in glory and an oven to keep the pizza box warm in. These two hypothetical extremes want very different kitchens. In nearly all cases, though, the classic mid-century kitchen, whether a galley or a full room, is a space where those big three elements, the fridge, the range, and the sink, are set into base cabinets set against walls, with cabinets attached to the walls above them anywhere that isn't a window. This means that every work surface in a mid-century kitchen requires you to turn your back to the room and probably stare down a cabinet door less than 12 inches from your face. It's not great for lighting or space to spread out, and if anyone else is in the room with you, you've got to turn your back on them to get something done. So before we get into fun cabinet pulls, paint colors, and backsplash tile, don't forget to consider the layout. Even with a small remodel, you can make some improvements. Where possible, I always recommend finding room for some new arrangement that allows you to face the room while you cook. If you don't have room for an island, what about a small peninsula? If you can't manage that, consider a 2x2 foot butcher block in the middle of an open counter kitchen. So let's talk about 3 levels of kitchen update plans. Level 1, per usual, is concerned with the surfaces of things, what you can buy and install to transform your kitchen. For a start, a fresh coat of paint never goes amiss. Kitchens are inherently dirty. The oil of cooking accumulates on walls and makes them ever so slightly dingy and grimy. Painting a fresh white or a bright color on the visible walls, or even inside previously painted cabinets, can transform your space. Think about color pops generally. Choose one or several bright mid-century colors to go with existing surfaces in the room, like the counter, cabinets, and tile. Then search out a kettle, tea towels, canisters, aprons, Pyrex bowls, and more that reflect the style and color or colors you're highlighting. You can go full vintage if you want, or find modern or mid-century light replicas at stores like CB2 or West Elm. Note, if you are working with genuine antiques, make sure you're checking for toxic materials. When you work with original cabinets, you might remove the doors of upper cabinets or highlight a bright wallpaper pattern in their backs to make a space seem larger. For a more intense level 2 kitchen update, you'll probably still leave the layout as is, but you can change up the fixtures and finishes. If you have your original mid-century kitchen, you'll be doing some cleanup and updating, but play up its retro style. There's a lot to love about an original mid-century kitchen, and it may actually still be in great shape. Original appliances that have survived various style changes can still work, and it's particularly common to find built-in wall ovens that are still in place and working. If you like them, keep them. If you don't, explore changing them. Wood cabinets may just need a refinish, but still stand strong. Counter surfaces, even for mica, may be cleanable and restorable. Unfortunately, it's much more likely, because kitchen styles turn over so rapidly, that you have an 80s or 2000s kitchen stuck in your mid-century house. So how can you bring it back towards the mid-century era? You can strip, refinish, or paint your cabinet doors, even if they are from the 90s era. You can change the style a lot by replacing the doors and drawers on existing cabinets with more modern, flat-fronted, instead of the shaker or colonial finishes that were popular as historical throwbacks in the 90s and beyond. You can replace handles from utilitarian Home Depot-style nickel to fun brass or bronze. This can be a good place to splurge. You can resurface your counter or replace it. If you do, you might consider going vintage. Check out retrorenovation.com for sourcing linoleum floors, Formica counters, and more. They're inexpensive, durable, and can be really stylish. For a more modern mid-century look, I'd recommend white solid surface counters. No granite, no marble. It just doesn't work with the era. These were simple times. The mid-century designers chose practical materials that looked beautiful on their own and held up well over time. As a bonus, they're often less expensive than fancier historicist materials. For a backsplash, you can go classic with a 4x4 mid-century square, or a more jazzy modern vintage style. Please avoid the urge to white subway tile. It is not a mid-century material. When you're going all in for a level 3 update, you will reconfigure the layout of your kitchen. Remember, those original mid-century kitchens were designed as a command center for mom, but now we're talking about them as a social space for everyone. So where possible, you want to readjust your layouts such that work surfaces don't all face the walls and fit in a peninsula, an island, or even a butcher block counter in a new layout if possible. When I think about modernizing a mid-century kitchen, I shift away from the idea of base cabinets with a wall above them. I think a lot of wall cabinets above counters enclose a room and make a small space seem smaller. Concentrate all your storage in one area or several areas of full floor-to-ceiling pantry shelving. When you're planning a total layout change in your kitchen, it pays to go through a number of iterations and think creatively about what you can do with the space. Here's another example of an original eat-in kitchen layout, which has a sort of a turned-in on itself with a small peninsula kitchen, with the same space reconfigured for a more modern-style, island-based kitchen that still has an eat-in table, now tucked to the wall with a bench. However you choose to mess around with layout in your Level 3 design, you can use the same finish ideas we talked about in Level 2. Since I mentioned eat-in kitchens, let's talk about dining areas. It's rare that a dining area in a mid-century house is a fully separate room. If you do have one, I encourage you to think critically about that space and ask yourself if you really need a designated area for formal eating. If you do, keep it and love it. If you don't, perhaps it could have a new incarnation as a library area, TV watching away room, added bedroom, or just more kitchen space. When you think about the space where you do sit down to eat, consider how you can both connect it and separate it from other areas in your home. You can create a lot of individualized feeling for a space with a few simple design moves, like a bold area rug under the table and a centered pendant light to throw a circle of light around it in the evening. Especially if you typically sit down only a few people to a table, consider building in a line or an L of bench seating against the edge of the dining area and push your table up against it. This is perfectly functional when you have added guests, but keeps your day-to-day space as open as possible. Have fun collecting mid-century furniture for your home. A stylish table, chairs, or pendant light can make or break the period feeling of your dining space. Alright, so let's hash back over those major design guidelines. Kitchens designed in the 1950s tend toward the single cook model and can be a little isolating and hard to share cooking duties in. You're looking to open them up, so without any dramatic moves like tearing out walls or flipping the whole layout, look for ways that you can create some space where two people face each other across a work surface. The most common combinations for a mid-century kitchen are a white solid surface counter with wood grain cabinet fronts. A slightly more budget option might be to have white cabinets, white laminate cabinet fronts as well, and then simply add in wood elements somewhere else in the kitchen. But basically, you're going to be bringing back white and wood and whatever pop color makes your heart sing. A lot of the feel of the kitchen will be set by the lighting and fixtures. Find a cabinet pull that's both comfortable to put your hand on and lends itself to your design goal, whether that be retro throwback or modern update. Another easy fix is to update your faucets. A modern gooseneck faucet looks clean and fresh and also is incredibly practical to use. Finally, lighting. Bring in as much natural light as possible through added windows. This will make a world of difference. You also want more task lighting in a kitchen. Sometimes we cook at night. Consider replacing a central ceiling light with cans placed above where you'll stand at the counter and under cabinet lights if you keep your upper cabinets. Pendant lights over peninsulas or islands make a nice visual statement. Again, this lesson doesn't come with a specific homework assignment, but go ahead and download the design guide for kitchens underneath this video and have a look through it. In our next lesson, we'll turn our attention to living spaces and how the social areas of your house can enhance the way you feel about living in it by yourself and sharing it with guests and friends. See you then.